Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this session. I'm Suwon Lee, a teaching professor at the University of Missouri. It is my great pleasure chairing this session entitled Statistics Helping the Growth of Business. It's a 1-hour session and each talk will be 20 minutes. Please leave any questions in the Q&A room that you can find in the bottom of the screen. And each speaker will introduce by themselves before they start their presentation. So the first session is Kaplan-Meier estimates and Markov models in the health economic analysis, a statistical approach to business decision presented by Mr. Hugo Pereira with Professor Helena Mouriño and Professor Raquel Fonseca. Hugo?
Hi. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Hugo, and today I am here to present a project I did with Professors Helena and Raquel. This project consists of applying Kaplan-Meier estimator and Markov model in health economic analysis. Now, to understand this project properly, we need to understand what health economics is. Health economics is a crucial tool for making policy and management decisions. It helps to balance costs, improve the quality of care, and sustain public health policies. To focus population of this study is hepatocellular carcinoma, HCC patients, submitted to transplant. This cancer is the most common type of primary liver cancer. In 2022, this cancer is the 6th most common cancer and the 3rd with the highest mortality. Since liver transplants for deceased donors depend on the limited resource, selection criteria are used to predict the patient's prognosis and decide if they should be transplanted or not. So far, these criteria have only been evaluated by comparing accuracy metrics and Kaplan-Meier curves for overall survival and recurrence-free survival, not analyzing the finance impact and the cost benefit of this. So our goal is to analyze a new selection criteria called HepatoPredict and compare it with other criteria, including the Milan Criteria, UCSF, up to 7, AFP Model, and MetroTicket 2.0. We conduct a cost-effectiveness analysis from the perspective of the US healthcare system to determine which selection criterion provides the most significant benefits: recurrence-free survival, overall survival, life years gain, and quality-adjusted life years, QALYs, to the health system and evaluated the cost benefits through the incremental cost effectiveness ratio, ICER. To implement this study, we built a Markov model to simulate the post-operative health states of HCC patients who submit liver transplants over 5 years. The model built in R includes 3 main health states: disease-free, recurrence, and death. To track how long a patient has been in recurrence, since the risk of dying increase over time, we create 49 tunnel states within the recurrence health states. And we realize this analysis for patients within and outside the criteria, which leads to separate health states for each group. This results in the transition matrix of dimension 102 by 102. Since time can affect transition probability for each criterion, we create 60 different metrics to account for these changes over time for each criterion. So our model is classified as a no stationary Markov model. Of all parameters used in the model, costs and qualities are obtained from American literature, and both are discounted at the 3% per year to account for time preference. And costs are adjusted to December 2023 US dollars using the US Consumer Price Index. The last parameter missing from the model is the probability of recurrence. These probabilities are different between criteria. We obtained classified each patient according to its criterion, and after this, we calculate the probabilities using Kaplan-Meier estimators based on a cohort of 149 patients from Portugal and Spain. We use the surfeit function in R to calculate the Kaplan-Meier estimators and confidence intervals. These confidence intervals as based on the log-log transformation because provides great precision as enunciated in Anchises' thesis. These confidence intervals are used in our sensitivity analysis of this parameter. Now, let's look at our results and conclusions. For recurrence-free survival time, we found that HepatoPredict-ClassII is the criterion that offers the highest optimization of this benefit because it's the criterion with the greatest distinction between patients within and outside the criterion. And the HepatoPredict-ClassII is the offers better results in patients outside criteria and is the second best in within criteria, which is a difference of 1 month. This happens because the HepatoPredict-ClassI and ClassII have the high precision and negative predict value in patient selection, making the HepatoPredict more efficient for organ distribution. And HepatoPredict-ClassII also offers a reduction in organ refuse in the patients who have a good prognosis but have been classified as bad in other criteria. Another benefit is life years gain in 5 years. We observed that HepatoPredict optimized these metrics, which has to be expected since it was the one that optimized the average recurrence-free survival time and patients' life expectancy decrease in relapse patients. For the analysis of qualities and costs, for the analysis of qualities, costs, and ICER, we only analyze patients within the criteria, since the transplant only happens to these patients. The criteria with the most qualities are both HepatoPredict-ClassII and since a Milan Criteria is the criterion that offers the lowest cost after 5 years. We use this for a reference for calculation the ICER. From the ICER, we see that Milan criteria dominates the up to 7 UCSF, AFP Model, and MetroTicket 2.0 by offering more qualities for a lower costs. So we noticed that both HepatoPredict-ClassI offer better cost benefit than Milan criteria, with ICER values below the US GDP per capita, meaning that the additional cost is acceptable from an economic point of view, as the World Health Organization indicates. For the sensitivity analysis, we noticed that the only critical parameter is the recurrence-free survival probabilities, which means that the conclusion drawn by the ICER can be altered in the variations of this parameter. However, these changes do not change the fact that HepatoPredict is a valuable option for patient selection. In development of this study, we noticed some limitation that could be explored in future research. One limitation is the cohort uses. We note that our results are very dependent on the cohorts. So in the future, more studies like this should be carried out with other cohorts to verify the robustness of our conclusions. The second limitation as the data available. Studies in this area are small, and the data provided in them is sometimes lacking in information, such as cost perspective and time localization. Another limitation was not performing a probabilistic sensitivity analysis using distributions due to the lack of data and time invested in this project. In our conclusions, HepatoPredict provides clinical results by better allocation organs and optimizing research. The cost benefits of HepatoPredict-ClassII to the Milan criteria is economical viable from the US healthcare system perspective, and even with limitations, this study is the first to analyze the clinical and economic impact of this selection criteria, providing important information for this area. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for the talk. I'd like to ask if there's any questions from the audience, please. I do not see any questions in the Q&A, and if we do not have any questions from audience, we have 3 minutes left. So I understand we have collaborators, Professor Mouriño and Fonseca. They are all here as well. You may share some comments within 2 minutes if you have any, please.
Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to come here to present our work. This is a work developed by my master student, Hugo Pereira, and also master student of Raquel Fonseca. Is a joint work. And we felt that this work is very important because it is based on a challenge that a research question that was established by the startup company where Hugo developed his master thesis, and they wanted to develop to make a health economic analysis, a cost effectiveness analysis. But we wanted to include in that analysis the statistical part that has to do with Markov models as well as survival analysis, because we faced several challenges, namely the computation of the CALIs from the economical point of view. From the statistical point of view, we needed to estimate the probabilities of death. And so we needed to use the estimates from different Kaplan-Meier estimates that appeared in the literature, because we don't have a data set to analyze. This was our main challenge, because we have to use the literature to collect the majority of the data and join the survival analysis with Markov chain. And the Markov chain were developed in order to describe the pathway, the journey of a patient with this type of disease in the liver. So I think that in the end, we gave available help to decide if a patient should have a liver transplantation or not. So,
That's great.
thank you very much.
Thank you for the comment. And Professor Fonseca, you might have like 1 minute for any comments or remarks, please.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you. I'll just have just use 1 minute. Yes, I think this this work and the presentation that Hugo has shown us is a very good example of a close collaboration between academia and the work, the research that we do here in our department, and a firm. In this case, it was a startup company that the aim was to evaluate a new kind of equipment, of medical equipment. And I think it is a very good example how the two of them can work together to reach a common goal. And I believe the results that we obtained were very helpful. And I hope the company is happy. I think it is. The greatest limitation is that we don't have a data set that we can use, that it is our own data set. So we had to rely on data from the literature that we collected. And sometimes the sample that is used is not exactly very similar to ours or to our case in Portugal, but that's something that we always have to work with, limitations in research. Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Great, thank you. Yes, our next speaker is Ricardo Galante. I did see him. I think he accidentally
Some
left.
problem occurred, I think, because he was here in this session, and
Right.
he disappeared, and he sent me an SMS saying that he doesn't. There he
Now
is.
he joined. Thank you, host, whoever. Let make him join us back to the session. Okay, the second session is entitled Integrating Statistics and Machine Learning to Forecast New Product Sales, the case of a Portuguese brewery.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let him to talk.
Okay, thank you. Guys, I think I have a problem with my camera. Is blurring something. I don't know if you've seen this kind of thing. So anyway, I will present my PowerPoint. I think is more important than my my view. Let me share my desktop with you. 1 second. Can you see my desktop?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. First of all, thank you very much for your attention. Okay, I'm sorry for this problem with my camera, but I think the most important part is here. I will show with you my intention, share with you a glance of my PhD thesis that I am doing here in University of Lisbon. Okay, with Teresa as my advisor, and the idea is share some experience that we are facing with this this process during this process. Okay, so here I put some background about my bio, our bio, okay, from Teresa, okay, my advisor, okay, and myself. I am work at SAS company, SAS Institute here in Iberia, okay, based in Portugal. And in parallel, I am a teacher at University of Lisbon and IPA, Portuguese Institute of Marketing and Administration. Okay, I work more related. My work is more related with data science and machine learning. Okay, this is more or less our background. So I will explain. For a didactical matter, I divided in some parts. Okay, my presentation. I divided in some points the context, the solution, application, is some takeaways. Okay, that we found in this, because it's not, I think it's an ongoing process. We didn't finalize this. Okay, we are our intention to finalize this until the end of this year. So what is the beginning of this thing that I will share with you? As I mentioned in the beginning, I work at SAS as a customer advisor. So I work a lot with customers. And in one experience here in Iberia, I was talking with a demand manager in an important company, a brewery company here in Portugal, okay? And they was implementing forecasts for new products. This is a thing that it seems easy, but it's not so easy, because when you forecast, the traditional forecast, you need a historical data to do the forecast. And when you have a new product, it's a problem. Okay, it's a challenge because you don't have this kind of information. To do this, they were using market research companies to try to identify the forecast of new products, and they were using surveys, focus group, social media listening, and a lot of techniques. But they were not happy with this. Okay, the demand manager was not satisfied with the results, because the first point is that the forecast was not so good. Okay, they didn't achieve good results with this more subjective approach. Okay, and they were spending a lot of money hiding these guys. Okay, with this type of company. Okay, so I talked with them, and I proposed to them another approach. Okay, I was starting my PhD. It was a little, I don't know, 2.5 years or 3 years ago. And I talked to them, hey guys, we can do this in another direction using a more analytical approach, okay? And they accepted this. And since the beginning, I was talking with Teresa, hey, Teresa, let's create like a system, okay? Let's create a system trying to predict this forecast of new products. And Teresa agreed with me. And since then, we are working on this direction, okay? And let me explain a little bit about the idea of forecasting for new products, because it's a challenge, as I mentioned before. Here we have a product, but we don't have historic. Okay, how can we do this? So at the I think the most interesting approach is try to find similar products and try to find similar features that we could use in this new product, and after this project the future. This is more or less the idea that we thought in the past, and in fact we are using right now. Okay, so we use it as a baseline. This paper, this is an amazing paper. Okay, I think this is in my I read a lot of papers about this, and this is the most important one because it's didactic, is professional, and I think is more or less that we are doing right now, because we are trying to connect the academic and the industry. Though it is more or less, it's not only academic or only business. It's like a combination of these two words. In our point of view, this is a good paper to have as a baseline, okay? And to do this, of course, I work at SAS. We are using SAS-Viya. SAS-Viya is an analytical platform, and we are using SAS-Viya to do the analytical part, okay? So what we had to start our research, we had data, okay? I talked with these guys, and they allowed, they was very kind with me, and they allowed to use a sample of data, and we used 18 products, okay, 18 historical information, 4 years of sales history, and some what we call variables that we called explanatory variables, but are not the most important variables, are like features that we had related with the variable. Our main variable was related with the sales, okay? But we have price, we had region, sales channel, marketplace, and so on. And this is a glance of our data set that we had, okay? Let me see my time here. And this, I think this is the most important slide in my presentation, is the system that we created to provide our forecast. Okay, we start with the existing products, not the new product. We started with the existing products, and all the information that we had, not only the sales history, but sales channel, region, price, etc. We start do the preparation. The data preparation is a tough part. Okay, we spend a lot of time on this, but I think was worth it to do this. And the first thing that we did was to project the future. Okay, project the future using the information that we had available. Okay, so we project the sales history using the data that we had available. Okay, so in this case we forecast the demand sales. Okay, and we used to do this 6 months ahead. Okay, and with this we had individual demands. In a sense, we had 18 individual forecasts based on the original one. Okay, after this we create clustering. Okay, we did an analysis of clusters to clusterize this demand forecast. This is very nice because in this way we can forecast not only time series, but we could forecast profile of time series. To do this, we use k-means, and as I mentioned right now, the idea here is not having only time series, but profile of the demands. This is a very cool thing. And after this, we train a model to predict this profile. Okay, we will understand this in a second when we put here in this flow the new product. To do this, to train a model to predict the profile, we use sales channel, region, price, etc. To do this, we use a random forest model. Okay, and with this model, with this model, we have a possibility to predict the pattern of demand. So it's a half of our problem, okay? Because we have the pattern of demand, but we need to have the demand of the process. And in parallel, we did this. We took the forecast that we had, the 6 months that we projected, and we sum the demand. In this way, we have 2 things right now. We have the pattern of demand, and we have the pattern of demand, and we have the total of demand. To do this, we use the same way. We use the sales channel, region, price, etc. And in this way, we use a quantile regression to do this. And as a result, we were able to predict the volume of demand. But you can think, but what you did this? What in the name of God you did this kind of thing, divide into? Because the problem is not related with the available products. The problem is related with the new product. And now we have this new product in the flow. we have the new product, but how would be possible to project the new, because we don't have the historical information. No, you're right, we don't have the information, but we have the sales channel, region, price, in the same way that we have for the other products. And using these models that we created, we were able to score. It's like a credit scoring, but in the forecast sense. Okay, we score the profile. To this NP means new product. So we score the profile and we score the total demand using the information of the available product, but taking the new product as a reference. And after this, we have the pattern of demand and the volume of demand. The next challenge was, okay, but how can we combine these two things? Because, okay, we have the score profile, and we have the score of the total demand. But how can we combine these two things? And now I show you how can we do this. We combine these two things to create the new product forecast. Okay, I will pass for the next slide. And here we have the same thing. We have the score profile to new product and they score the total demand to new product. And in the first, in the above line, we have the time series with the expected profile. Each P that we have here is a period in the time, okay? Could be a January, February, and so on. And in the bottom line, we have the total demand expected. So to combine these two things, we created like a calibration index, okay? And in this calibration index, we were able to join these two parts. And with this calibration index, we have the pattern of demand and the total of demand. This is amazing because in this way, we can have these two features or characteristics related with the product that doesn't exist yet, okay? We use the product available to predict information for a new product, okay? This is a very powerful thing, okay? And to do this, we are using a lot of statistics and machine learning. Okay, and beyond this, we did a process related with price elasticity, and I am finishing my presentation here. It's only to remind us what does mean price elasticity. The price elasticity is a process that you could check what is the demand when I change the price. This is more or less the things that we have when we are talking about price elasticity. I put the formula here, and we apply this kind of thing in our system. Why we did this? Because our intention is not only to project the future, but our intention is to, beyond project the future, create scenarios, what if scenarios, okay? Because we think that this could be a very cool lever to the companies, because they could project the future, but creating scenarios to project this information. And what I will show you is exactly, I create some reports based on the results that you achieved, and I will show from now on these results, okay? Here we have a report, okay? These lines represent the forecast. We are talking about the future, okay? We are talking about the information created using the new product, but remember, we use the products available in our data set. Here we have Portugal, of course, and we have some information. In the bottom part, you have the channels that they were using. We have the market, and we have, if you see in the right side, we have the price movement exactly related with the price elasticity. Why we did this? Because our intention is do this kind of thing. Suppose that I would like to identify what would be the forecast for the region of Coimbra, but increasing 15% in terms of price. And with this kind of thing, we had, okay, we were able to have this kind, combining information related with price elasticity and combining information related with the new product forecast. Another example, suppose that we want right now not change the price, but I would like to filter only this region, okay, the south part of Portugal, and we could have this. So we have the results created filtering a region in Portugal. Did you see? This is a very cool thing, because here we have a lot of analytics, we have a lot of methodologies involved, but these have a good practical approach in terms of business. Okay, and this is a point that we would like to highlight. With this, I finish my presentation, but I would like to highlight this part, because this methodology is extremely flexible, because we can apply this in any kind of industries. We could apply this in banks, or insurance, in telco, in breweries, as we made, okay, retail, or I think there are no limitation for the application of this kind of methodology, as I put here. And it's not only a thing that is cool. I think this is this methodology could save money. Okay, this is the idea, because you could anticipate problems, you could create forecasts, you could generate forecasts, but you could, okay, but it's not worth enough to produce, to create this kind of product in this region, but let's create this product in another region. So this is a cool thing that we have when you say like sensibility analysis, or what if scenarios. What if I create this forecast for this region, but not for that region? This is a cool thing. So in more or less, in a nutshell, this is more what we are creating is, as I mentioned before, is an ongoing process, ongoing work. Okay, we are doing, Teresa and myself, we are working on this process, and I would like to thank you for your time, and that's it. And I am available if you have any questions related with the work or the thing that I showed.
Thank you very much for finishing up on time. So we are going to save some questions, if you have any, by the end of the session. So
Okay.
let's move on to the next session. It's going to be the last but not least session, entitled Credit Risk as a Tool for the Leverage of Investment in Business, Evaluating the Probability of Default for Minimum Size Companies. So we will have two speakers, Ms. Mariana Franco and Professor Teresa Ampio.
Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Okay,
better like
thank you.
that.
Okay, so hello, everyone. My name is Mariana Frank, and I will be sharing the project that I did in collaboration with Professor Teresa Ampio, which is Credit Risk as a Tool for the Leverage of Investment in Business, Evaluating the Probability of Default for Medium-Sized Companies. I will now give the floor to the discussant to talk about the importance of this subject.
Okay. Good night to everybody. So, as it is well known, granting credit is one of the main banking activities, and it's also an essential factor for the leverage of economic growth. But, however, a poor or careless risk assessment can have very bad consequences, as it was the case of the so-called subprime crisis in 2008. Because to stop or to mitigate this crisis, banking authorities have been tightening the regulations for granting credit, mainly through the Basel agreements, which are signed for more than 100 countries. And namely, these regulations, maybe the most important, are related to what is called the solvability ratio, which is the capital tier 1 of the bank over risk-weighted assets, which has to be larger than 8%. And the contribution of credit risk to this ratio is very important, because the credit is a very important asset of banks, and is calculated on the basis of expected credit loss, which is the probability of default times the exposure at default times the loss given default, which is a percentage of the exposure that the bank will not be able to recover. So the goal of this project was to find methodologies and models to evaluate accurately the probability of default of a medium-sized company. The main methodologies we used are based on logistic regression, but we also gave a strong attention to the preparation of data so that we could find a parsimonious but reliable and easy to use model. And for this, we used cluster analysis and contingency tables. So the explanatory variables contain information about the company situation at different times related to the balance sheet and also with qualitative information that Mariana will explain in more detail later. The response variable is a binary variable, which is 1 if the client enters in default, if the company enters in default during the next 12 months after the beginning of the contract, and is 0 otherwise. So now I will let Mariana explain how we worked in this problem.
So now I will talk about our concrete case study. To create this model, we had information on medium-sized enterprises with credit in a particular Portuguese bank, and we had data from 2015 to 2022. As Professor Teresa explained, our response variable was the 12-month default. And we had 2 types of explanatory variables. So we had the quantitative ones that are related to the company's financial performance, such as the values of certain items in the company's balance sheet. And we also had qualitative variables that are related to the knowledge that the bank's commercial area had acquired about the company. Let us look now at the qualitative variables. So initially we had a set of 15 variables, like the industry sector of the company or the company's negotiating power. And immediately in our first analysis, what we realized was that 2 of these variables were highly correlated because 99% of the observations had the same value in both of them. And these were the issues among shareholders and the issues between shareholders or managers and shareholders and administrators. So we built 2 simple logistic regression models, each one with the response variable, the 12-month default, and each one of these. And based on the value of the likelihood ratio, we selected the issues among shareholders and eliminated the other variables. So now we had 14 qualitative variables that could enter our model. I would want us to look at the industry sector with a little more attention, because as you can see, we realized that this variable had a lot of categories, 22 to be more precise. And then in the future, we will turn this variable into dummy variables to go into our logistic regression model. And this would translate into a lot of variables. So we wanted to see what we could do so we could reduce this number of buckets, because some of these categories have default rates that are really close together. So we decided to use the words method. And based on the buckets provided by this method, we then proceeded to do homogeneity and heterogeneity tests. And starting with 5 buckets, we tested different numbers of buckets and decided to transform the variable into a variable with 8 categories, as we can see here in this slide, grouped by their default rates. So we went from 22 categories to 8, which is a really good result in our opinion. Then we went to analyze the quantitative variables. So initially we had 31 variables of this type, and we started by calculating the Pearson correlation coefficient. And with a threshold of 80%, we identified 4 pairs of highly correlated variables. And using the same methodology that I've described previously with the likelihood ratio, we were able to eliminate 4 variables, and we kept the ones that are here highlighted with the color green. So we had now 27 possible quantitative variables for our model. even though we still had a lot of variables, we wanted to build new ones because we wanted to see if relationships between two or more variables could explain the default in a way that the individual ones would not. So we built 6 financial ratios and 3 behavioral ones. Some of the ratios are, for example, debt to equity, financial autonomy, as you can see here. And then we proceeded to calculate the correlation between all of them and between them and the original variables. And we identified 2 variables that were highly negatively correlated, which were the financial autonomy and the financial average. And using the same methodology that I've explained, we eliminated the financial autonomy. So now we had 8 new variables on top of those 27. So we ended up with 45 quantitative variables and 14 qualitative ones that would be the possible explanatory variables for our model. So it was now time to build and evaluate our models. To start, we decided to build the full model with the 49 variables that I have explained, 45 numerical and 14 categorical that had to be turned into 46 dummies. We weren't expecting to keep this as our model, but we wanted to see how the full model without any further treatment, how it was. So how were the results, and we got an area under the ROC curve of 0.85, which is really good. And with our optimal cut point, we got a good percentage of correct predictions and sensitivity and specificity. So we got satisfactory results, but we wanted a more parsimonious model because we still had a lot of variables and we want the least possible estimation error and an easy model to use. So we wanted to see what we could do to improve this model, still keep the quality, but with less variables. So we decided to do a variance inflation factor analysis and then apply the stepwise selection method to our model. So obviously we only applied the variance inflation factors to our quantitative variables, and with a threshold of 3, we were able to eliminate 8 of the variables. The rest of them, we put them into the model, and applying the stepwise selection method, we ended up with 32 variables, 20 numerical and 12 categorical, turned into 28 dummies. And we still got really good results in the various indicators, but we can compare the 2 models that we had built at this point. So as you can see here, indicators such as the area under the curve, the sensitivity, specificity, and the percentage of correct predictions. Some have better results in the first model, some in the second, but overall, these differences are not significant when you consider these indicators. But when we look at the number of variables, the second model is obviously better because we were able to eliminate 17 variables, or 33 when you consider all the dummies. So we had a model that still had really good quality and was more parsimonious, so we felt like we were on the right track. But we still wanted to see what more can we do, can we improve this model? So we thought about doing a principal component analysis on the quantitative variables that came out of the stepwise of this second model. So that's what we did. We had 20 variables. And we wanted that the principal components, the set of principal components that we chose would explain at least 80% of the variance. So for that, we had to choose the 12 first principal components. And those, along with the categorical variables that we had already from the second model, were the variables that we put into our model and then again applied the stepwise. The stepwise did nothing for the categorical variables, they stayed the same, but it eliminated 2 of our principal components. So now we had 22 variables and the results kept being really satisfactory. And we can look at the sensitivity and specificity, and this is the model where we got the best balance between them because they are both 76% when we round them to the unit. So this is a really good balance. Comparing again the second and the third model, in the first indicators, some are better in the second, some in the third, but again, these differences are not significant in our opinion. But again, when we look at the number of variables, the third model is obviously more parsimonious. We were able to eliminate 10 more variables. So this is the final model that we chose for our project, this third model, because it still had a really good indicators when we look at the first one, and it was a reduced number of variables compared to the initial number of variables that we had. So now it's the time to interpret our models, which is really important. So about the qualitative factors, it is important to interpret our models. So we can see here, for example, I'm not going to read all of these, obviously, but for example, sectors such as extraction and textile industry have higher probability of default. Or for example, we can see that if a company has a negotiating power that is high or medium, there's a lower probability of default. All of this makes a lot of sense. And we have here all the factors to be interpreted. When we look at the quantitative factors, that's when we realize the limitation of our model, because we cannot interpret directly the principal components, because each principal component is a combination of the initial variables. This doesn't reduce the quality of our model, of the results, but if the user isn't willing to lose the interpretability of the variables, this could be a limitation for them. So we still chose the third model, but we present the second one as an alternative if the user isn't willing to lose that interpretability. So now, looking at the second model, now we can interpret these factors. For example, if higher financial costs, higher probability of default, or for example, if the provisions in the year of observation are higher, there's a lower probability of default. So we present this as an alternative because, as we've seen, the second model still had really good quality. We chose the third one because, as we can see, in terms of number of variables, we consider it to be more advantageous, and that was our goal. But in terms of interpretability, as you can see here, the second one is better because all variables can be directly interpreted. And as I've said before, the first indicators, the differences between the models are not significant in our opinion. Then we decided to apply the selected model to an independent database just to see how it would behave with data that wasn't used to create the model. And we got an area under the curve even higher than our original one. And with the cut point that we chose for our third model, we got a really good values of percentage of correct predictions. We got a really high sensitivity of 82%, and the specificity is also really satisfactory. So this would attest to the quality of our model with an independent database. So we were really, really happy with this result. Then to end, we decided to do a little loss simulation example, just a quick example of what would happen if we used another independent database with specific information about this type of companies in a specific month. And we also had information about the exposure of those clients in the bank in that month. So with our model, our third model, we built the confusion matrix, and then we built the confusion matrix based on that exposure. And what were our conclusions? So the bank's effective loss would be about 1.5 million euros to credit default, which corresponds to about 3% of the exposure of customers to whom the bank would have granted the loan because they were classified as compliant. But also the bank would not profit from the interest associated with the exposure of about 38 million euros of customers to whom the loan would not be granted, but they would not default. So the bank would not lose, obviously, 38 million euros, but they wouldn't benefit from the associated interest. But what is important to take from this analysis is that the use of the proposed model prevented the loss of about 5.85 million euros through credit default, which is about 80% of the exposure of customers who defaulted. So this is just a little food for thought, maybe for next work, and we wanted just to do a little example and see what would happen when we did this analysis. Now moving on into our conclusions. So as we could see, the data set that was provided initially and without any method of variable selection or transformation produced a model of excellent quality in terms of the various criteria presented, including the area under the ROC curve, the sensitivity, specificity, and also the percentage of correct predictions. Then we identified our main challenge, which was to obtain a high quality yet parsimonious model, given the abundance of information related to the medium-sized enterprises under analysis. So we had a lot of variables, and it was important to see which ones were really important to explain the default, and that's what we did. And now, to conclude, I will give the floor again to the discussant to conclude this presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, very quickly. We have only 3 minutes, I think. So the key methodology to achieve a parsimonious model was to use principal component analysis, which combined with the stepwise selection method and the VIFS indicators allowed for a very significant reduction on the initial number of variables. However, this, as it was already said by Mariana, this methodology has the difficulty in interpreting principal components. The second model constructed, although it has more variables, it can it can be more easy to interpret it, and the factors that contribute to default more can be identified. But both models are they have good prediction quality, and that is good. And as we have only 2 minutes, I ask Mariana what improvements can we do in these models? The difficult questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your talk. It was very interesting. As we have only 1 minute left, I think we have to wrap up this session. So again, thank you very much for attending the session. I understand it was a long day, but there are 2 more sessions and the last keynote speech session, Shaping the Future, Empowering Women in Statistics and Data Science left. So I hope you stick around with us for the next few hours till the closing. Again, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Suhan.
Thank you.